You leave the meeting. You close the laptop. You stand up. The meeting ended, but something follows you. Not a clear thought, more like a feeling you can't shake. It's the kind of meeting you've had dozens of times. People shared their opinions. Ideas were discussed. Everyone had a take. A lot was said. Feedback went into different directions. It felt like people were answering different questions. And at the end, someone said it. Looks good. A couple of nods, no clear objections. And on the surface, that should be enough. Looks good usually means alignment. It sounds like confirmation. It sounds like closure. So you pack up, assuming this is settled. But as you walk away, there's still that feeling. You've done this long enough to recognize your intuition. It's not panic, not clear doubt. It's just wait. You don't argue with it, you've learned not to. You just notice it's there. You sit back down at your desk. You open the next task. You read the first line, then the second. Your eyes move, but your concentration doesn't. There's a drop in focus. There's a drop in momentum. There's a drop in your ability to start the next thing. But there's no obvious reason for the drop. It's not about productivity or skill. The meeting wasn't intense. There was no conflict, no tension. Nobody pushed back. People shared opinions, reacted to different parts, and eventually the meeting wrapped. But somehow that took more out of you than it should have. Here's the strange part. Nothing obviously failed. Nothing specific went wrong. Nothing you could point at. Nothing you could quote. Nothing you could escalate. Which is why it felt like alignment. You try to move on, but your mind keeps circling back. Not to the whole meeting, to the ending. You keep replaying that moment. The nods, the looks good, because it sounded like closure, but it didn't feel like it. This is the sentence that keeps quietly looping in your head. It sounded like it's settled, but I don't think it actually is. You don't say it out loud, you just carry it. The time goes by, but your attention is still scattered. Your head feels busy, but not productive. It feels like it's waiting for something on standby. And sooner or later it happens. An email pops in, quick question, or a Slack message. Let's revisit this once again. Or a phone call. Now that I think about it, it's back. That's when the tension spikes. Because this isn't your first rodeo. You felt like this before. You thought things were settled. They said it was good. And yet, it's back. Here's the spike. Nothing exploded. Nothing specific went wrong. But it took more out of you than if it had. Because when there's an obvious contradiction, it ends. When somebody pushes back, it's clear. You know what broke, and you know what needs to be fixed. This didn't break. Nothing specifically you could name. Nothing you could point your finger at. It just stayed open. So you sit there with it weighing you down. Not stress, not urgency, suspension. You don't call it a bad meeting, because it wasn't. You don't blame the people. They were reasonable. But the project isn't moving forward, and your name is attached to it. So eventually, the questions turn inward. Did I explain it badly? Did I miss something? Was I not clear enough? Later, much later, this is where you start fixing the wrong thing. You try harder. You drink more coffee. You devote your free time to it. You're trying to push through. You try to focus better, manage your energy. You tell yourself to be sharper next time, more prepared, more disciplined. But the drop didn't come from lack of sleep. It didn't come from lack of effort. It didn't come from lack of motivation. It came from carrying something that never actually closed. Because every single task that isn't clearly closed for good stays open in your head, quietly. It loops in the background, takes up space, lives there rent-free. One open loop doesn't exhaust you. 5 don't either. But after enough meetings that sounded settled, without ever truly being settled, your system starts the day already loaded. Your body doesn't care how reasonable the meeting was. It doesn't care how small decision was. It only knows that something stayed open. And when enough of those stack up, you don't feel stressed. You feel drained. That's why it's so easy to confuse this kind of exhaustion with weakness. Because nothing dramatic happened. Everything looked fine, except it wasn't finished.